This is Cow Bites, the technical segment for the Cow Talks podcast, with your host, Marcelo Valal, Forage Extension Specialist for the University of Florida. With the renewed interest in soil health, forage or cover crop mixes became quite popular. There are many companies selling very complex mixes with 8, 10, 15 different species. But do we really need that many species? There are 4 criteria that I like following when thinking about a forage or a cover crop mix. Complementarity in time, in space, in function, and in resilience. Let's discuss each one briefly. Complementarity in time. Those are forages that are going to have different growth curves or different peaks of growth during the growing season. Let's pick up small grains, oat and ryegrass. Small grains are going to come earlier in the season, oat's going to come earlier in the season, and ryegrass is going to be a later option to complement in time so we can extend the grazing season. Complementarity in space, we're talking about different growth habits. For example, a viney legume with a prostrate grass. We can think about triticale and hairy vetch with the vetch climbing into the triticale, or perhaps some pear millet or sorghum in the summer with the cowpeas. So we're filling different niches in space here with the different growth habits. You can also think about root architecture, the different root architecture. Sometimes we want to put some tillage radish or other brassicas with deeper and strong root systems to achieve different objectives in terms of soil health. Complementarity in function. For example, when we add grasses and legumes together, where the grasses provide more biomass and the legumes provide nitrogen and increase the nutritive value of our forage mix. And the last one is complementarity in resilience. So we can have a more resilient forage mix or cover crop mix to adverse weather, for example, or different managements. Well, a good example is if we put 2 small grains like oat and rye together, which might seem not wise because they are both fitting the same function, but they have different resiliences. For example, if we have a very cold weather during the winter, the oat is going to suffer much more than the rye. If you only have oat, then you are likely to have a lower overall production, but if you mix some rye or triticale, we're going to bounce back quicker. Same thing in terms of weather, same thing in terms of diseases and drought tolerance. If you have forage species that are more drought tolerant than others, mixing those can give you an extra layer of resilience. So, how many forage species do we need to put together a good mix? Well, it really depends on what you want to accomplish. First of all, what grows well? Putting together a complex mix just because of the sake of putting together a complex mix to say we have 15 species growing is probably a big waste of money because most of those species or those varieties are not going to grow well in your region. And if they grow, they are going to start competing with each other, so that means you are not getting the most benefit out of anything. In order to save money and have the most benefit out of your mix, choose species that are complementary to each other. Choose species that grow well. Choose varieties that are better adapted to the conditions and objectives you have. This is going to save you money and help you achieve your objectives more successfully. This podcast was produced by Marcelo Valal and Ashley Kuhn and brought to you by the University of Florida IFAS Forage team.